to give them what they want. Everything became gradually diminished. Their living conditions, their income. Prabhupada describes how he had a big car, big American car. I think it was a Buick, which is in those days, very few and far between. No one had such opulence. But by faith's desire, by the blessings of the sadhu, so sometimes the blessings of the sadhu are not what they seem. One is blessed to have some facility to attain spiritual understanding. But that takes the form of detachment. Jnana Vairagya. These two things go hand in hand. It's not that if one has knowledge, that simply by knowledge alone, he will achieve the desired result. He has to have big jnana, and he has to have vairagya. Vairagya vidya nijji bhakti yoga. Without vairagya, without renunciation, bhakti cannot take place. Material life is like a full cup. There's no room for spiritual life. You have to gradually reduce the contents of the material cup and replace it with spiritual content. A simple explanation Prabhupada used to give is that if you have something in a cup unwanted, you have to replace it with something desirable, clean, fresh water. And we've seen that. The theory of displacement is famously described by Archimedes. And there's a famous term associated with that moment. Anybody know what that term is in Latin or Greek? Eureka. Eureka. Very famous principle of displacement. Simply by sitting in the tub of water, his whole mind, he was thinking for so long about this concept, how to calculate. Of course, difficult to measure large objects in those days. They didn't have digital scales. They didn't have any type of scales, really. They had systems of weights and balances. But when he sat in the tub, water was displaced. And he said, Eureka. Because at that moment he realized, if you put something in of a certain weight, of a certain volume, it displaces an equal amount of volume. So that's a mathematical concept since that time. But the point of realization, that Eureka moment, this is that Eureka moment. When one has that understanding that somehow or other I am spirit soul, I am not this body. I have the opportunity now to catch the reality. Because once I've identified that reality, then I can measure all illusion. I can see it for what it is. This is the concept, Prabhupada says in the previous purports, of seeing Krishna and Maya behind Krishna. Maya can never stand alongside Krishna, neither she can stand in front of Krishna. She always must be behind Krishna. So if Krishna is with you, Maya is always behind you. She cannot have any effect. But you have to have that realization. What is illusion? So that's why in the first shloka it says that this Dharma projita kaitavocha, that this religion for the purpose of eliminating, for not knowing the difference between reality and illusion for the benefit of all. They're kicking out all cheating religions. Because no other religion makes this distinction. No other philosophy makes this distinction. The Mayavadis think everything is illusion. Except for them. How is that? How can they think that everything is illusion except for them? Something to be said about their mental word juggling. Everything is illusion. But somehow or other we're real. Brahma Satya Jagat Miti. And that's how they identify themselves, that I'm God. Brahma Satya, Jagat Mitra. The universe is mythic, false. But Brahma Satya. But the Brahman is truth. But somehow or other they have to accept, they have to think that I am that truth. I am that truth. So humble. So many things they say. I am that. But the intelligent soul, by the mercy of the Guru only, he gets this insight that I am part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. I am the servant. I am not the Supreme. And that immediately opens one up. Shrindata Swakata Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Ridyanta Story Bhadrani Vidu Noti Suritsata. For the truthful devotee, the one who is simple, whose heart is pure, he immediately understands. There's no necessity. He doesn't have to be convinced. This is the difference you see. When devotees come, you can automatically tell that what is their state of consciousness. They accept that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. I am His servant. I can surrender under the shelter of the spiritual master. And my life is perfect. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to make any other arrangements for my welfare, for my well-being, for this. No. If one wants to stay simple as a brahmachari, brahmachari, one wants to become a grahastha, a little more complicated. He has to take so many things into consideration. Prabhupada said, don't become a grahastha unless you could do more service. Very important instruction. Otherwise, what's the point? Otherwise, you're stealing from the spiritual master because you're dividing your time now. That's stealing. But if you have an employer and you tell him, you're engaged for 8 hours under his supervision, and you're being paid for 8 hours. You're getting the benefit of 8 hours. And you say, but I have to spend 4 hours doing something else. So, what is that? There's some consideration. So technically we belong to the spiritual master. When we surrender, we put on this kunti mala. Prabhupada said this kunti mala is our dog collar. This collar denotes I have a master. The dog doesn't do anything separate from the master. At least under ideal circumstances. He's connected by a leash. The master says, come here, he comes. The master says, sit, he sits. Everything is there. And when it's time to feed, the master feeds. So that is our spiritual identity. That is how we achieve our spiritual identity. To the extent that we can abide by those things, my life is simple. Life in the ashram is simple. Everything is there. There is some inconvenience. Just like in India, you think that in the days of Vyasadeva or Narada or any of these sages, all of our gurus, how are they dressed? Simple loincloth and coping. They weren't living in some big palaces. They were living very simply. They weren't demanding that I have to have some special accommodation. No, they were completely content. This is the symptom of one who is self-realized. He thinks Krishna will give whatever is required. No anxiety, no stress. Where will my food come from? When Prabhupada spoke in Brooklyn in 1975, the one nice shloka in the second canto, have the rivers dried up? Is there no torn cloth lying in the street? Are the caves of the mountains now closed? Otherwise, what is there to worry about? So this is, and people are always in anxiety. They're put into great fear by the prospect of apocalypse. Because why? If there's an apocalypse, what happens? No material amenities. You have to take the water from the river. There's no electricity. You have to wash your clothes by hand. You have to cook your meals by fire. So that's apocalypse to them. All material facility removed. You have to go back to, what do they call it? The Stone Age. You have to go back to the Stone Age. But for devotees, they don't see anything wrong. When you go to Vrindavan, you see the sadhus. They're living everywhere without any shelter. And they're going from place to place and taking prasad. And they're not worried about what they're wearing or what people think of what they're wearing. They're completely free. This is liberation. No concern for material situation. That's the freedom that the ashram affords you. I don't have to think about paying the rent, I don't have to think about this. Everything should be there according to our needs. Not big needs, basic needs. Otherwise, yes, people can go and make a living. New York is a place where people can make millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Just by some little effort. It's not a big deal. But some people, if it's not your fate, in 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj puts it very clearly. You cannot get more than you are destined to get, regardless of your endeavor. People work hard their whole lives and make very little. And then someone, just somehow or other, by Krishna's arrangement, he does nothing, and he makes $1 million. Or $1 billion. Very little effort. He wins the lottery. He invents some operating system. Something, it doesn't matter. But it's there. So he says that just as distress comes of its own accord, nobody is looking for distress. Nobody's looking at, I should break my leg today, or I should fall off, the subway platform. No, nobody's thinking like that. But these things come of their own accord. We see it all the time. We read it in the newspaper. Some crazy man comes up and behind someone and pushes them off the track onto the path of an oncoming train. What is that? That person wasn't thinking this is going to happen. So in the same way that distress comes of its own accord, happiness also comes of its own accord. Without any endeavor, if you're destined to have it. Maya Sukaya Varam Udvahato Vimata. So we can make this choice though. This is the thing. We can make this choice. Should I seek pleasure? And how does one seek pleasure in the material world? Very limited choices. The whole material world is revolving around this sense gratification, culminating in sex life. This is the highest. This is the ultimate. And it is driving the civilization into ruin. Completely into ruin. Because they lose sight of the goal of spiritual life. Maya traps them. Prabhupada gives the example of the elephant. Such a big, Prabhupada would use these terms, not correct terms. Big fatty animal. A big fatty animal. Very powerful. And how is he captured? He's captured by the she-elephant, who is secured by a rope, chain, or tether. And there's a big pit which is dug in the earth, covered by some camouflage, bamboo, and foliage. And in this haste to reach the elephant, he walks right into the trap and falls down, and then he's helpless. They stone him to death, or they spear him to death. Very easy. Just by sex life, just by the promise of sex enjoyment, he's captured. The biggest elephant, the biggest animal in the jungle, can kill anything. And he's a vegetarian. But he's captured by this sex. So we shouldn't underestimate Maya's ability to trap us in these things. It's very insidious. Insidious means not obvious. Just like when during a time of war, you have what's called infiltrators. People who sneak through the lines of defense to create havoc without being discovered. And they create great harm. They do so much damage. Just a few men can destroy a huge installation if it's planned properly. called infiltrators. So, material nature has so many infiltrators that come into the mind through the senses, through the eyes. Something is infiltrating through the ears. Something is infiltrating through the sense of touch. Someone you want to. And these things we don't have to elaborate. It's easy to extrapolate. You know, all these senses are there only for sense attraction. So we have to train them. We have to harness them. And how does it done? Rishikeshi, Rishikena, Sevana, Bhakti Uchite. One has to engage the senses in the service of the master of the senses. Then the senses are engaged properly. No more fear. They have to be engaged. And the more they're engaged, the greater opportunity for perfection and self-realization. Sarvapani vinir muktam, tat paratvarya nirmala, rishikesha, rishikela, sevana, bhakti uchikela. Sarvapani means, upadi means unwanted thing. Sarva upadi means all unwanted things have to be kicked out. Have to be kicked out. Then, free from those attachments, it's very easy to engage. If one is thinking, I have to finish the service, I got to go out this, I got to meet this person, I got to do this, I got to do that, then there's no benefit to that consideration. It's like trying to fulfill some material obligation, thinking that I'm trading devotional service. I'm making an exchange. But you can't have an exchange. Surrender has to be complete. There was that Prabhupada lecture we listened to the other day on the recording. Prabhupada uses this term, Sarvatmana. Sarvatmana means full surrender with heart and soul, no reservation. Pretty complete description, I would say. That definition. Is there anything lacking in that definition? Sarvatmana. Full surrender, no reservation, with heart and soul. You know, sometimes we think heart and soul is only applied to certain aspects of devotional life. There's one of our kirtaniyas, he's always saying, with your heart. With your heart. But it's not just that, with your heart. Everything has to be with your heart. Because if you're not doing everything with your heart, then how is your heart just here, at that aspect? It can't be. One has to be always engaged in that regard. And then anything he does is with heart. Right? It's not that you love someone only when there's some exchange, when you're getting some benefit. You know, otherwise nobody would love their children. Because, 90% of the time it's a headache. But that love is unconditional. Regardless of the circumstances, you love those kids. Right? The bond, it can be broken. Anything can be broken. But we have to have such a bond that even if there's a disturbance in my so-called service in Krishna, the bond is not broken. My connection to Radha Govinda and Srila Prabhupada and my Guru Maharaj has to be so firmly fixed that it cannot be broken by anything. Otherwise, it is not real. It is not real love. Then it is just conditional. I love you only under these conditions. Only if I get a nice warm place to sleep and such and such and such and such and such and such. The mind does this. If I'm not getting these conditions, I'm going. And the mind will make so many excuses. Oh yeah, this person, I don't like this person, I don't like this, I don't like that. This is the mind. This is how it works. And Dhritarashtra was like that. He was like a dog at the table being fed the scraps. But Vidura's words, because a sadhu, the words of a sadhu, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta compared them to a scalpel. And they cut out these anarthas, these unwanted things. Cuts it out. You know, for some people, a scalpel is a very, you can do great damage with a scalpel. So sharp. It cuts through all the layers of skin. 7 layers. Everybody knows, right? There's 7 layers of skin. Of epidermis. And underneath that is the fatty tissue. Disgusting. We talked about that the other day. You don't want to see it. It's hellish. To think that this is the material body. But we're thinking, oh, this material body is the source of all my enjoyment. So Dhritarashtra became free, he became liberated. And what did he do? He immediately left that association which would prevent him from achieving full success. Around family and friends who were giving him false respect. Because he's still thinking, I'm king. And these people are still giving me respect. No. Vidura cut it. Chindanti Kovidata, like this, with the sword of knowledge. Chindanti means to cut. We have this knot in the heart. So that knot has to be cut. Everyone knows the story about the Gordian knot, right? The Gordian knot? No? Never heard about the Gordian knot? Everybody knows Alexander the Great, right? Alexander the Great, an ancient warrior, famed for his expertise in martial strategy. He conquered the whole known world at that time, basically. But he stopped in India. He couldn't proceed. So India was spared. He took all of Asia Minor. But when he came to the Hindu Kush, he was stopped. Now one of the challenges, and there was many challenges, his logistics, usually a situation is disturbed when your march of military formations and implements of war exceed your ability to maintain a continuous supply chain. You get too far ahead, you can't provide. You can only pillage so much from the places you're trying to conquer. And you have no supplies to feed your 100,000 men, and your horses, and your elephants, and everything else. So the supply chain is the most important aspect of any military engagement. But he was expert, that's why he was able to do this. So he met one challenge and nobody could defeat him. But there was a special knot that was like a riddle, and it was tied in such a way nobody could figure out how to untie it. And so Alexander came and he was challenged that you cannot proceed unless you untie this knot. And everybody had been stumped up to that point. Nobody had opened it. Since time immemorial, that knot could not be untied. So what did Alexander do? Drew his sword and he sliced the knot in half. Because that was the riddle. He just had to untie or undo it. He didn't have to physically go there and spend all the time trying to undo it. Just had to untie the knot, undo it, boom. One slash of his sword. So this is Chindanti Kovidatasya. Spiritual knowledge is so powerful that if you take it up seriously, with one stroke, boom, Maya is finished. Now again, you can let Maya in. But at that moment of realization, like Vidura has, that moment we have all experienced at some point. Clear moment of realization. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Saschakoi, Lava Macha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Siddhi Heart. Prabhupada is, in English, he's paraphrasing this. One moment's association, Sadhu Sangha, the association of devotees, Sadhu Sangha. Sarva, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Saschakoi. That this is the most desirable association. Lava Macha, one moment, Lava Macha, one moment's association. Lavamacha Sadhu Sangha Sarvasiddhi, brings all perfection. Brings all perfection. And that Prabhupada is, he's making that point that because of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's association for whatever short amount of time it was, the seed was planted. The seed was planted. Instructions were given, but they had yet to fructify. And when did they fructify? When Srila Prabhupada's material support was removed. His material support was removed. And he understood that this was Krishna's mercy. But it didn't make his family life any easier. Again, you lose all respect. The family members think, oh, this person is useless. He can't give us what we want. Can you imagine? It's difficult to imagine how such a great soul put into that situation. But by the agency of the Supreme Lord. So that he would have nothing left and that the order of his spiritual master would become prominent. So yeah, we don't understand fully. There's such great souls. And there's a tendency to ascribe something supernatural. And Prabhupada always cut that out. But you didn't want someone to think that, no, that this is unachievable. That only someone who is, they have this, anyway, some devotees are always trying to make it more than what Prabhupada wanted us to understand. That Nitya Siddha is something there. When a person, he said, Sadhan Siddha, Nitya Siddha, the same. When someone is Nitya Siddha, he's Siddha. Doesn't matter. Nitya or Sadha. Siddha is Siddha. And these are exactly how we describe it. Perfect is perfect. Otherwise someone may say, well, we can't be like Prabhupada. No, we can't. What's that verse? Anusara and Anukara. These two terms are there in Sanskrit. Anukara means imitation. And Anusara means following. So one has to follow the example, not imitate. And otherwise there's some great danger can take place. So we are followers. And Prabhupada has given us everything for our understanding, to see that the goal can be achieved. Not that like someone said, no, I can't do this. I'm not like these saints and such. No. Anyone can achieve this. Anyone. Jakpadeham puna janma. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatpataha. Jakpadeham puna janma nayati mamiti. Everything is there. Satatam kirtyam tomam. All these verses of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking. He's speaking to Arjuna, but he's not speaking to Arjuna. Arjuna is an eternal associate of the Lord. But he's saying everything in this way for the benefit of those to follow. And the hint is there. That this supreme science is thus understood in the chain of disciplic succession. And the saintly kings understood it in that way. But the science as it is appears to be lost. Therefore I'm speaking it to you. The science it is appears to be lost. So for us it doesn't appear to be lost unless we ignore it. Every one of these books is pregnant with knowledge. One simply has to read. Nothing else. And all of his difficulties will be gone. All of his difficulties will be gone. We can also hear Srila Prabhupada. That's there. But he said these books are the law books for 10,000 years. So there's a special emphasis. A devotee, he takes great pleasure in hearing from the spiritual master. Because he has already a foundation for appreciation. But one should not neglect reading. Because these purports are my ecstasy. that mean? Ecstasy doesn't mean dancing around with some, grin. No, the ecstasy means that this is directly in exchange with the Supreme Personality of God. Ecstasy means that link is continuous. Sometimes we get a taste of this in kirtan, in the association of the deities and the devotees. That ecstasy is palpable. We can feel it. We can taste it. It's there, but it's not continuous. But we get that taste. We understand that. And in the higher stages, that taste is continuous. And that is called samadhi. But we should take great consolation in the fact that this is an achievable. Prabhupada, what did he say? Even if you don't want to dance in the bliss will come. Even if you don't want to dance. Why? Because that endeavor to please Krishna is immediately reciprocated. And anyone who exercises knows that. You think, I don't want to dance. I don't want people to see me. I don't want to, whatever. So many excuses. The mind has so many excuses. When you dance, automatically Krishna gives you, he reciprocates. Instantaneously. It's not, you have to wait. Instantaneously. The bliss comes. Because you're engaging in a completely spiritual activity, free from the contamination of material considerations and false ego. Unless you're trying to dance to impress someone. That's there too. You have to be careful. So we can read this verse again. Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the scion of the family of Jamid, firmly convinced by the introspective knowledge, pragya, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation, as directed by his younger brother Vidura. So just see that progression. And by the association of Mahatma Vidura, he became firmly convinced by introspective knowledge. And what does that mean? It means that he was now, his focus was turned inwards to the spirit soul. What is best for my actual self, not what is best for my external self. That's introspective knowledge. What is best for me, spirit soul? Not for my body, not for my family's bodies, not for my material situation. And that has to take priority. That should be the predominating consideration of our activities. We should be thinking, is this good for my spiritual life? So any questions, comments, corrections, concerns? Kishore is a great sadhu back there. David Damana, any?
Something in the beginning I wanted to ask about, but then as the lecture progressed, I kind of lost the track.
That's because I can only present things not in a logical progression. Krishna's mercy. The mercy of Bhakta Blake, who said that, no, you have to give classes. Oh, okay. But the Bhagavatam is so nice. Everywhere, probably one time was question about Chaitanya Charitamrita, 17 volumes. Someone was saying, well, how do I read it? Prabhupada said, anywhere you open, anywhere you read, he said it's sweet. Anywhere you open, it's like a ripe fruit. You can taste it from the top, you can taste it from the bottom, you can taste it from the side. But you just read. So we know that we should progress through 9 cantos, come to the summum bonum. That's there. But it doesn't mean that, no, well, I'm on first canto, I can't read second. No. You read whatever in the Bhagavatam. Because, like the Prabhupada said, these purports are not ordinary. They're not ordinary, these purports.
One reflection that even sometimes if you have association for a moment with the pure devotee and you really get this really strong realization and the knot gets cut, still it becomes covered again, and then you need sometimes longer association to really make a change.
We have to, it's not something that you can force yourself, but at the same time, by practice, Mataji was saying that one, in the association of the pure devotee, one gets a certain sensation, realization, but it becomes covered over again. But that's because our activities don't keep up with our, how can you say, desire. And that's we have this process, sambandha abhideya prayojana. That once we have this connection, sambandha, we have to act in that connection. So if I'm a servant, I have to act as a servant. I have to perform such services that allow me to develop that attitude of service. So, sometimes you'll hear the Tamil commander say, your service attitude needs an adjustment. And why these two terms? Because service attitude is a combined concept. We know what service is. One has to have the attitude that yes, I'm ready to do whatever is required. And what did Prabhupada say? What was the term? To do the needful. To do the needful. We get such opportunities, but sometimes we don't do it. Whether it's someone asking to do something or whether you see something that needs to be done, but you think it's not my service. But service is always available and there's no limit. One just has to have that desire. And when it's given, you should be grateful and accept it. Krishna knows your heart. He's not going to put you in a situation where it's going to be, how can you say, a negative experience. Oh, it'll be negative only if you don't see why I'm here. Why did Krishna, what did Prabhupada say? When he landed in Boston Harbor? Somehow or other you brought me to this place. Hellish place. All meat eaters, mlechas, yavanas. Somehow or other you brought me to this place. But if you want me to dance, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like. This is how the devotee thinks. Prabhupada's not just speaking these words because they make nice poetry. These are feeling realizations. Just like the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, filled with great realization. And when one reads these, you get that feeling. You also partake in that mood that he's exemplifying. So we want that mood. So therefore we read these poems to remind ourselves, Prabhupada had to struggle. So who are we to think that things are going to be handed to us on a silver platter? Everything has to be so easy or so nice. Or that everybody's my friend, everybody loves me, everybody respects me. This is like a hospital. And in the hospital, everybody's got some sickness, some disease. Somebody's critical, somebody's quarantined, somebody's this, somebody's that. But everybody's getting healthy, so to speak, under the guidance and the prescription of the doctors. So not everybody's at the same level of health. So we have to consider these things in our dealings, not artificially, but with a genuine appreciation that yes, we're all here in the same situation, trying to please Krishna and the spiritual master, and somehow or other fulfill the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, spread these teachings to every town and village. This is our only desire, that this temple should be a place where every walk of life, every person from every situation can come and he can have access to Krishna. And we know that if a person is sincere, he will engage in service. This is the symptom. This is the symptom of sincerity. That one desires to do something for Krishna. Doesn't want to just take from Krishna. He wants to give something to Krishna. So therefore, Rupa Goswami, he wrote Nectar Devotion, Nectar Instruction. All these things are there, just for the devotees. Any other questions, concerns? So as long as we stay properly situated, the goal is guaranteed. We can actually say that the goal is guaranteed. Prabhupada told us. And that, to have a little faith in those words, will take you to the complete success of the endeavor. Complete success. But faith. So faith in the words of the spiritual master, faith in his instructions, that I just have to, and to remember that point at which you had that realization when you were sitting there. Yes, it can be covered over, but it can be uncovered just as easily. You know, it's just like a curtain, opening and closing. And that's all Maya is. Just a thin veil that conceals the true nature of the material world. And we just have to pull back the curtain again and again, whatever is required, as many times as necessary. Says, no, I reject Maya. I reject it. Sankalpa, vikalpa. This is the business of the mind. Accepting and rejecting. Sankalpa, vikalpa. So, just another practice. I'm accepting what is beneficial for spiritual life, and I'm rejecting what is against my real self-interest. Just have to reject. No. Only accepting things which are favorable, and rejecting things which are unfavorable. Any other questions?